Someone sent me a great dad joke today. What did one toilet say to the other toilet? You look flushed. And that will be our attempt at humor, my attempt at humor for the day. So just really quickly, I just want to go through some brief introductions. Thank you, first of all, everyone, for joining us today on our Expert Corner. Today, we're going to be talking about vulnerability management. Quick introduction, myself, my name is James Weiss. I am the account executive for Shing Digital up here in beautiful Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. A little bit about Shing Digital. We are a full service IT provider. We provide networking, infrastructure, cybersecurity, all sorts of different storage options as well. So again, we've been around for about 20 years or so. We are based here in Alberta, but we do projects all over Canada and through Central America. But I'll turn it over to my guest, Eric.
Hello, my name is Eric Boivin. I'm from Montréal, Quebec, hence the weird accent. I am the global sales leader for vulnerability management product named VDR, Vulnerability Detection and Response at SecureWorks. SecureWorks is a company that is working in cybersecurity. For more than 25 years, we've been providing security service such as pen testing, intruder reaction, also publishing the Taegis platform, which help our customer secure their environment and making sure that we're catching the bad guys before they can do anything bad.
Perfect. Well, we need that. Today's day and age for sure. So just a little bit about our format. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. We want to be very respectful of your time. We've got a half hour to go through. It's just straight Q&A going through vulnerability management. We can ask questions either through the Q&A on the Zoom call, or you can also raise your hand and we can get to an audio question as well. Or in the comment section, you can ask a question as well, and we'll try to grab as many as we can. If we're not able to get to everyone, we will follow up with everyone email after the event. Again, half an hour seems to fly right by. So with that being said, let's get started. I'll start us off if that's all right with the first question. I'm going to give you an easy one to start off. What is a vulnerability management system?
All right. Well, vulnerability management systems are there to find what are the weaknesses that exist in your environment. Any equipment that you have in your network, your printers, your workstations, your IP cameras, everything that is in your environment can have vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities are known exploitable pieces of software. So, or protocol or OS. So anything that an attacker could take advantage of to break into a system can be called a vulnerability. Everybody has them. It's normal. Keeping up to date with every vulnerability is an impossible race. So a vulnerability management solution will help to identify what are those existing possible threats in your environment and will help you remediate on those so that you are reducing the possible risk that can be associated with those vulnerabilities existing in your environment. It's a very important discipline in cybersecurity because by fixing those known vulnerabilities, you are making the life much harder for threat actors because now they won't be able to just run some scripts that are well known to work. So it is an essential discipline, and our tool and other competing tools are great to help identify those issues and fix those as soon as possible.
Excellent. Perfect. So we've got some questions coming in from the group here already. I'll start us off. What are the differences between a vulnerability, a risk, and a threat?
All right, that's a great question. The vulnerability itself is a weakness that exists in the code. Let's say, for example, let's take log4j. This vulnerability log4shell has been published last December. So the vulnerability itself is a weakness that allowed someone to send a payload into a remote system. Then that system, by trying to log that entry, would also do a remote call to a remote server. That is a vulnerability in itself. So the vulnerability exists in the code and has to be patched to make sure that you're fixing it. The risk is how likely it is possible that this vulnerability could be exploited. In the case of Log4j, for example, if you're not even logging anything, well, the risk is much lower. So this is why it is important to analyze every vulnerability and understand where is the risk within the environment and the threat. Risk management is all about identifying those possible threat actors, those vectors that could come and take advantage of those things. They could be nation state actors. They could be competitors. They can be just random hackers. There are multiple reasons why someone could leverage those. So it is important to also to be able to categorize what are the vulnerabilities and how could they be leveraged, and making sure that you understand what is the possible threat within your environment, and thus reducing the risk and the likelihood and the impact in case there's an exploit that is happening against one of those vulnerabilities.
Okay, perfect. Carrying right on with the questions, and we're just flowing one right into the other here. Someone's asked, do we really need to worry about things like printers, cameras, or other devices?
Well, I would say yes. Let me give you a few examples. In terms of a camera, I was working with a customer. They had cameras in their environment. And the thing is that from the web application form, so something where you log in for to access the administration console, there was a weakness in that camera. And that camera, it was possible through that machine, through the IoT installed in the machine, to do an escalation of privileges from there and do remote code execution from a camera. So even if you're seeing this device as a black box, something completely isolated, uh, even appliances can be possible threats. We also need to take into account things like printers. Another great story that we had is that there was a company where they're manufacturing. It's a manufacturing company, and just by testing their printers, we've been able to see that their unsecure printers we can just send some payload into the printers, and the printers started like wasting paper. But the thing is that this printer is actually on the company production line. So if you're losing your printers, you are impacting the whole environment. So even if the risk is contained, you cannot like do escalation of privileges and go into full-fledged ransomware. You can still have business impact and economical impact on such devices. So yes, I know vulnerability management is often focused mainly on networking equipment, servers, and workstations, but no, the threat can actually be using anything that exists on the network. So this is why it is important to take vulnerabilities and assess where should you be focusing your remediation action on what threat actors are leveraging. So it is yeah, it's a difficult task, but there
Yeah,
are good tools that exist for this.
beautiful. So kind of moving back a little bit, vulnerability management, this isn't something that's new at all to the IT world. And like I think we go back probably 20 years, if not longer with it. What's changed? What's new? And how have things progressed over that time?
Yeah, that's super interesting. Initially, vulnerability management was pretty much point and shoot. You give it a machine, and then you run it. You install the software directly on the machine. It runs itself, and then you get like the information on what's happening. Then we evolved into having scanners that will be able to reach multiple machines within the environment. So using things like agents. One thing that's really interesting that happened in the last decade is the advent of cloud scanning. So rather than having a machine installed within your premises, now there is a scanner that is accessing remotely your environment. So that way you don't have to install an agent on every single machine, which is a problem because like your previous question, you cannot install an agent on a printer or on camera. So by using a cloud scanner, now we're being able to expand the landscape on where we're able to identify vulnerabilities within the environment. Also, one very important change that happened and that has been put emphasis on by analysts is the usage of artificial intelligence in vulnerability management. So discipline was all about taking like 500 long pages of reports and trying to filter what is important. This is something that is very difficult for for security teams and vulnerability management teams in particular to take care of. So now one thing we can do is leverage artificial intelligence to do things like taking decisions on what vulnerabilities should be focused at first, automating choices so to reduce the amount of manual effort that is needed to maintain your program. All these techniques using data science, for example, to to look at what should we be doing when you're looking at an environment. Let's say you have hundreds or thousands of assets. Finding the vulnerabilities that are the most important to take care of could be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Right.
So, of course, for a team, and often vulnerability management, one person in a company will be doing this. This is impossible. So this is why now vulnerability management is has evolved a lot in the last years, and this is where you can see how we're able to use modern techniques to to help customers and organization focus on what is important for them and thus reduce the risk associated with the vulnerabilities.
Okay, perfect. Well, got hopefully an easy one here for you. Got a anonymous attendee. They're asking, how often should we run a vulnerability scan?
My suggestion would be a weekly scan. So I know that there exists some programs. Let's say that you work with a volunteer assessment team that will do quarterly or yearly scans. The thing is that the vulnerabilities are very dynamic. There's new stuff that come in every week and every day. This year, we're once again will be beating the number of new vulnerabilities that get released, and it's been the same trend for years and years. So by doing only quarterly or yearly vulnerability reports, you are just ignoring a big part of that very dynamic cat and mouse game that threat actors are leveraging right now. And when there's a new vulnerability, you should be aware of that. Of course, in the news, you will hear things um, Log4Shell, for example. But if you're only doing scans every once a year, then you are not helping yourself because threat actors will be leveraging these new vulnerabilities as soon as they come out. So this is why my suggestion, weekly scans. So using a tool that will automate that and getting that information so that you have fresh data in from what is the vulnerability, the risk associated with vulnerabilities within your environment. And let's be honest, like any devices that have barely any change, let's say a camera, you can wait one each month, that can be okay. Same thing if you, let's say that in your environment you have 100 identical devices, you don't need to scan every single one of those once a week. You can also do some sampling, maybe take one golden image, scan this one once a week, and just as soon as you know there's a vulnerability, now you know this vulnerability would also apply to every other. So there's good discipline to be had with vulnerability management, but there are good tools that exist for doing that.
Oh, absolutely. So this is a personal one of mine. I just have to ask because I'm always curious to hear some of the stories from someone like yourself who's been around and seen a few of these things before. What are some examples of some times that bad actors have maybe been able to get into a less than secure environment? What happens if we
Uh,
don't properly manage this?
Ransomware, it's not a miracle. Those threat actors that will automate scans on the internet trying to find weak spots, once they do, they will knock at every possible door and they will use those existing vulnerabilities. So from an external point of view, let's say your websites, well, it is possible to do things like cross-site scripting. So to abuse the JavaScript within a web application and to have full control over an application, there are there are numerous risks that can be associated with both external but also internal assets. Let's say, for example, you have a phishing campaign, and we've seen that now recently. There's a one vulnerability that has been associated with a Microsoft diagnostic tool. It is simply you get a form sent by an email saying, okay, we need you to fill this form, put your name, phone number. So nothing bad. They just put the logo of the company and that's it. But that vulnerability that is exploited by this is that the Word document will do a call to this Windows support tool and will be able to lead to an exploitation from within the employee's computer. And of course, from there, you can chain the attack. These examples can be very damaging to an organization. And this is why for us at SecureWorks, when we do incident response, one of the first things that we'll do is that look, what is the vulnerability management program? And if they don't have, then we will set in place our tool because we know it works well. We know we get results fast because threat actors are leveraging those vulnerabilities, and it should be the first thing that they should be taking care of to prevent even ransomware where you
Yep.
lose all control.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of worst case scenarios out there.
Yeah.
It's a scary world. All right. So, somewhat in the same here, anonymous attendee once again. We typically wait 30 days after security patches are released before implementing them. Is this a good practice, or should we install them as soon as they are released?
This is a great question because yes, waiting 30 days, I think, can be somewhat of a good idea because sometimes we see patches that are released, let's say on Patch Thursday, and it's possible that they introduce other problems. By waiting a little bit, you can make sure that this patch has maybe been battle tested. So because other organizations have been able to implement this patch, and that way you can minimize the impact that patching can have in your environment. So absolutely, this is possible. Also, some patches, just like that Microsoft vulnerability that I just mentioned, Microsoft didn't have a patch right away. The remediation was to go into your registry and change a key, but that's not a long-term remediation pathway. So waiting 30 days can be okay. The thing is that if there is a new vulnerability and we have threat intelligence that prove that there is exploitation that is happening right now, then now you're into trouble. Because let's say the threat actors will scan the entire internet, will try to find things in certain countries, certain industry verticals, and will target those. So if you're waiting 1 month, then threat actors don't wait for 30 days after a patch. They might be leveraging right now because they know that at this time, this vulnerability has just been revealed, and they know that organizations take time to apply proper remediation. So I would say 30 days is okay, but what is more important is having good prioritization that knows what is happening out there. What is the threat intelligence that we have around that vulnerability? So that way you're able to maybe hijack that process, not wait 30 days, but in that particular case, apply remediation right away because threat actors won't wait for the next month.
Definitely. So, with again such a complex environment, how do we prioritize the different threats?
It is a very difficult discipline to prioritize everything. Of course, we have the CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System that exists. So every vulnerability that is published by the NIST has a score between 0 and 10 that tells how they think it is important to fix it. It's based on risk. It's based on the widespread of attack. These scores can also change. So already there's a scoring system. So of course, taking care of what is most important can help. But the problem is that threat actors don't use the CVSS system to know, oh yeah, I should be using this one. No, they know that every organization out there will be fixing 10 of score 10 vulnerabilities right away. So what they will do, they will leverage medium level vulnerabilities, those things that flow under the radar. So this is why prioritization must also take into account the context of both what is important for your organization, what are the jewels of the crown, those devices for which you should not allow vulnerabilities. Because if there is an escalation in the chain of attack, this device can absolutely not be compromised. So already context is key. Understanding what assets would be very detrimental if they ever get attacked. Also, external context, knowing what happened in the world. This is something very difficult. You might be following Twitter feeds, or Reddit, or following InfoSec news, but this is a very difficult discipline to keep on touch of every news that exists in the InfoSec world. So threat intelligence can help by advising you on which vulnerabilities exist in your environment that we know that threat actors are leveraging. And like I said, they want to be using the CVSS score to know what they should be exploiting. They will use whatever works for them because just like me, these people are lazy and will go for what is the easiest way to get into organizations network. So prioritization is key. It can take effort, but with good discipline and of course with good products, uh, it's possible. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence can definitely help to sift through this mountain of information and be able to help organizations focus on what's really relevant for them to take care of in priority.
Excellent. Great. Well, I'm just going to give us our 5-minute warning here, so we can hopefully squeeze in a couple more questions. Next question has to do more so with size and scale. So we have over 1,200 computers plus servers and many network connected devices. How can we prioritize what we are supposed to patch first?
Yeah, this is exactly what I mentioned. This when now you're talking about hundreds and more than 1,000 devices, you cannot go in there one by one. You must be prioritizing on criticality, that's for sure. Those vulnerabilities that we know that have been exploited in the out there, you need to take care of those. So of course, CVSS score, look at those in at first, look at what's 9, what's 10, and take care of those vulnerabilities at first. It's a difficult exercise, but with a good discipline, organization, even at that scale, are able to. I know that I've seen customers of mine that have thousands and thousands of assets, but where they are so risk adverse that they will put the right resources on taking care of anything with a medium to medium high or critical severity. So it is possible, but one hint, one tip I can give to people is don't look at it like a mountain. It will be impossible to see to take care of everything at once. Uh, so start slowly, start smart. Take care of what is important. Focus your effort on preventing the preventing where the attacks could do the most damage. Things like, let's say, workstations. These are not that important. Even if one workstation is compromised, then you have, as long as your network is protected, you have a good firewall rules, but also your vulnerabilities within your environment are good, then you're making it way more difficult for threat actors to be leveraging vulnerabilities. So use good tools, good practices. Also, it's important to make sure that those processes are well established in your organization. So take the time because reducing vulnerability risk is something critical.
Absolutely. All right, we're down to the wire. We got time for one more. Last question. What sources does SecureWorks VDR use? Is it only the CVE database?
Oh, we're using multiple sources actually. So that's a great thing about SecureWorks. We are a company with a lot of experience on the field. We have our own security researchers. We have our own advisory group. So we're able to use that data and inject it into the platform. So of course, in addition to multiple CV databases, we are able to use that experience, add it into the platform. We have our own like vulnerability signatures. We're not only CV. CV, by the way, is the common vulnerabilities. So the system where every known vulnerabilities will be identified. But let's say your web applications that you've coded in-house, there's no CVEs for that. But our tool in SecureWorks is also able to identify those and to help you understand that there could be vulnerability risk in those web applications as well. So it's really a group of multiple sources, both in-house and taken from other sources, external sources.
Perfect. All right. Well, that brings us to the finish line. I told you it would fly by, and here we are. So we haven't been able to make it to all the questions. So everyone, thank you so much for your questions. It's great to see such an engaged group with us today. What we will do is circle back and go through and answer these in an email format and then distribute that to everyone who's attended today. Also be on the lookout for on our YouTube channel. We will be uploading a recording of this session. If there was something that you missed and wanted to circle back on, it'll be there, as well as the previous 5 episodes of Cybersecurity Expert Corner. So again, thank you guys very much for showing up. Our next Expert Corner is going to be on July 21st at 3 p.m. and it's going to be themed around disaster recovery and business continuity. So we look forward to seeing everyone at that point. And thank you so much again, Eric. Appreciate your time and appreciate your insight. Look forward to many more.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Thank you.